President Trump's record-long State of the Union address featured a number of claims about the U.S. economy, including repeated statements about inflation, job manufacturing, growth, and what he believes to be a potential income tax replacement. Let's bring in right now the former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst, Steve Rattner, with a fact check. You know, Steve, I noticed yesterday that when I would look at focus group dials, where they dial whether they support or they oppose what the president's saying, agree or disagree, there are a couple of things that always made the numbers go down. Interestingly enough, whenever he talked about America being in a golden age, the dials went down because people don't feel like they're in a golden age. Whenever he talked about how well the economy was doing, strongest ever, those numbers, those dials would go down. Same thing with tariffs. And it just went back to Ronald Reagan, who, as you know, would famously say, when your next door neighbor is out of a job, well, that's a recession. When you're out of a job, it's a depression. For a lot of people, they're just not feeling like this is anywhere close to being a golden age, in part because inflation is about where it was when Joe Biden left office. And why don't we begin with inflation? I want to play for you, Steve, what the president had to say about inflation on Tuesday.
When I last spoke in this chamber 12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels. Today, our border is secure. Our spirit is restored. Inflation is plummeting. Incomes are rising fast. The roaring economy is roaring like never before.
Steve, anybody that actually gets out of bed in the morning and accidentally sees news for more than 3 seconds understands that inflation was not at record levels when Donald Trump took office, and inflation is not plummeting now. Why don't you give us the details of those misleading statements?
Well, first of all, Joe, I can't compete with that set of clips that you lit in with. That was really, really something special. But the other incredible thing is that Trump keeps saying the same things over and over again, and people like me get up here and correcting him with, like, facts over and over again, and he keeps saying them as if somehow he can make them true. So we can start with inflation down here. Trump inherited not the worst inflation in history by any stretch of the imagination. If you go back in here in the Biden administration, it hit 9%. And you can see by the time Trump showed up, inflation was below 3%, depending upon which measure you look at. Trump looks at the CPI, which is this pink line. By that measure, inflation came down a little bit at the end of last year. The Federal Reserve, however, thinks there's a more accurate measure of inflation, an index called the PCE. That's what they look at. And by that measure, inflation's actually up. And you can, in fact, almost see Liberation Day and then everything that happened after with the tariffs and so forth. So to say he inherited the worst inflation is completely absurd. To say he brought inflation down is almost nearly as absurd. But let's also talk about growth and the best economy ever and all this stuff. So Trump claims that the economy is roaring, thanks to him. But in fact, it is not roaring as fast as it was roaring under Joe Biden the last 2 years. It grew 2.2% last year. We're at a 2.4%, 3.4%. A smaller number and then a huge number after we came out of COVID. Why is this happening? It's happening because I think in part there's a lot of uncertainty around there about Trump's policies, around tariffs, around immigration, which is an important part of our labor force. And so when that happens, business and consumers kind of pull back. You had a government shutdown in the fourth quarter. That didn't help. But all in all, he can't really brag about a great first year when it comes to growth.
And just to underline again on inflation, he keeps saying he inherited the worst inflation in American history, not even in the ballpark of the worst inflation in American history. Let's also talk about jobs, labor. President Trump's team touting what he said is record labor and manufacturing growth, claiming factories are, quote, pouring into the United States. Let's listen.
More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. Moving forward, factories, jobs, investment, and trillions of dollars will continue pouring into the United States of America because we finally have a president who puts America first.
Steve, what's the truth about that?
Well, he found a way to sort of slide through the truth slightly here, but nonetheless, I think the picture is very different than what he portrayed. So let's start with the fact that job growth under President Biden was 122,000 jobs per month added, and you can see that average right here. Under Trump, the average is 15,000 jobs per month. So, yeah, he added some jobs, but a fraction of what his predecessor did. And moreover, under Trump, the unemployment rate is up, meaning there are more Americans out of work. And in addition to that, the number of Americans who are unemployed for a long period of time, more than 26 weeks, is now a quarter of our labor force. Unemployment among youths just getting out of college looking for their first job is now around 10%. So to proclaim a great jobs market is hard to say. And then he talked about factories coming back like never before. So let's look what's happening compared to never before. So under Biden, actually, factory growth jumped up enormously. We passed the what's called the Inflation Reduction Act, which is really more a stimulation of manufacturing. We passed a very important CHIPS Act to bring semiconductor production back into this country. Under Trump, we have done none of that. And in fact, manufacturing spending has been tailing off. So rather than factories rushing back here, we are actually spending fewer dollars on manufacturing construction, and we are employing fewer manufacturing workers. Manufacturing employment is actually down since Trump took office.
And that's something the Wall Street Journal has been reporting on extensively, the slump in manufacturing jobs, in part because of tariffs. So let's talk about tariffs. The president said he believes they will have the ability to replace income tax for Americans. Here's that claim.
And as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love.
So much in there, Steve. Sorry, forgive me for having you restate this for the 1 millionth time, but who actually pays tariffs, number one, and number two, what about the idea that they could replace income tax?
Yeah, this is in the category of things Trump keeps saying over and over again, and we keep saying the truth over and over again, and it doesn't seem to much matter. But let's start with this idea, which he doesn't say quite as often, but he said it before, about tariffs replacing the income tax. So here's a little pie chart. It shows you all the government's revenues. Tariffs, we call them customs duties here, but these are tariffs, represent 4% of the government's revenues. Individual income taxes represent 51% of the government's revenues. The idea that this, no matter what you do, is going to become that is sort of hard to imagine. This actually, coincidentally, this amount of money, about $12 trillion, is almost equal to the amount of everything we import into this country. So the math just doesn't even come close to working. And then the question of who pays the tariffs. You heard in that clip him say that foreign countries pay the tariffs. That has been his refrain from the beginning. The Federal Reserve Board of New York put out a study recently that showed something different. It showed that between 86 and 94% of all the tariffs have been absorbed by U.S. importers, and only somewhere between 6 and 14% of the tariffs have been paid by the foreign exporters. And so going back to my inflation chart, there's no question that tariffs have added to our inflation rate. President Trump's chief economic advisor came out and said this was the worst study he'd ever seen in his professional career, which I think is probably a compliment if you take it the right way, because they got under his skin with a very good study by the New York Federal Reserve.
Well, the New York Federal Reserve has said it with a study. The Wall Street Journal editorial page, and the Wall Street Journal says it all the time. Financial Times, Republicans, Democrats, the very people that are running the government now used to say it before they had to change their positions to work for Donald Trump. It's very obvious Americans pay for that tax. Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner. Thank you so much for being with us.